Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button, and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy! All right, folks, here we are on Thursday, December 14th. We're going to take a look at SoFi today. So SoFi finally stretching above the levels that we've had on the chart here. So we're going to put in some new levels. We're going to take a look at the Think or Swim study and call it a video. So first things first, this downtrend channel that had been in, it made a break for it. We made a couple of videos about that a while back, about it approaching resistance here, about, I think the one thumbnail was like time to climb. And yes, it seems that that has been the case. So I'm going to get rid of this for the time being. And I'm going to get rid of these down here in the low sevens and below, just so that we don't get too cluttered on the chart. We can always add stuff back in, especially now that we have even more information. And just sort of deal with where we are at the moment. So on the daily here, I'm going to put in some levels. I'm just going to kind of, identify some obvious stuff, and then we will situate it appropriately. So 1003, so not surprising, that approach to $10 will probably be quite precarious in nature. Just the psychological nature of approaching and then holding $10. Sometimes folks wonder why it's over the dollar amount, like the psychological level, and not under it, because sometimes there's sort of like exuberation, right, at the approach of these psychological levels, and it kind of pushes to it and slightly through it with some relative ease. But then the question becomes, okay, at that same psychological level, once it blows through it, even if it's just by a few pennies, how many folks are like, okay, now's time to lock in these profits and see what's going on, see what's going to happen. So the battle to hold it is usually, in my opinion, where the biggest battle takes place. Not always, but nothing's absolute. All right. Okay, so these are the levels. So sort of nothing super shocking. There's this 911 level, which is nice because it's not like right at 9. In fact, I don't see a clear call outs that is right at 9. No, it's below. Where is 9? Okay, the 9's right here. Yeah, I don't really see it, to be honest. So I would look to the downside from where we are now. Let me just get back to our present day price action. And okay, so nearest in level of support would be down here at 911. May not need to come down that far. Obviously, we're in the middle of a candle, so it may not need to come down there. It might work off of intraday levels. Resistance that it needs to overcome for the time being is 948. So again, it's probably that psychological like 950 level. And then, like we said, the 1003. So I'm trying to pull in the stronger levels. So there are going to be some levels that exist in between these. But again, in an effort to not super clutter the chart, I didn't want to put in a bunch of other levels. Now, because we're not super cluttered and because these are relatively invisible, for the time being, I'm going to put one, what's the low of this day? 909 so far. So I'm going to have to remember to come in and adjust this gap if it changes throughout the day today. It's not a big gap. 896. Okay. So it's sort of like the battle of 9 more than a very strong support and resistance level. To me, the battle for 9 looks like it is this gap, right? This gap that would be filled just below 9. It would be entered a little bit above 9. So to me, if it comes back down to that range, it would be more of the battle of, are we going to fill this gap or not? And if so, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to bounce back into the 9s and continue to climb higher? Like, in other words, is the gap fill something of a sort of, healthy pullback after a big push? We'll have to see. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself with that at the moment. Now, the other thing, I don't know if this will hold, and I feel like I often jinx us when I put these in, but let's see. There's sort of a nice clean climb, though it was, sort of all back-to-back days, but nice steady climb. The thing I like about it is when it started to sort of peel off of that climb, right, because it stretched up far above it, what I like to see is what happens when it bangs back into it. And here, it sidestepped and banged into it and, basically treated it like a launching pad. So if that continues to hold, then that obviously gives us a whole bunch of ascending triangles to get through as that uptrend support encounters or collides with any of these resistance levels. So that's what I'm going to be looking at on the Webull side of things. On the Thinkorswim side of things, let me just go back here. We can sort of look at things that may appear slightly similar. Whether they play out similarly is, to be seen. But you see a conviction candle here saying this is pushing up, and it was already out of the channel, and it spent several days out of the channel. Eventually, we look for it to come in and retest the mid-range of the channel. Now, sometimes it doesn't do that like it did here pretty quickly. Sometimes it tries to ride this upper bound as support, and that shows that there's a lot of bullish momentum that still hasn't been exhausted. Sometimes it tries to ride the green wave cloud, and again, it's an indication of, okay, maybe there's a lot more bullish momentum to play out here. So we'll have to see what happens when that occurs. But right now, I just want to point out there's a conviction candle that happened a few days back, said this may be pushing up, and it's gone through that big push up. So it doesn't look exactly the same as this, but it's following a similar cadence and is now out of the channel. And so I just wanted to point out, just because we look for it to come back into the channel and retest at some point, SoFi has shown us that even out of the upper bound of the channel, it can spend several days out of the upper bound of the channel before it pulls back in. So it could pull in. Tomorrow could be like one of these jobs here, right, where it was out for a candle and then immediately pulls back in. So it can go either way, but sometimes folks think, oh, it's left the channel, it must pull back on the next candle or in the next two candles to come back in and test the channel. No, it's not the case. It's the same idea as when people think, oh, this stock is oversold on the RSI, people must start buying. No, they don't have to start buying at all. That's certainly not the case. Oversold stocks can keep selling. Overbought stocks can keep getting bought. None of these things, like I say, none of these things are absolute. So just wanted to point those out. No additional trigger and fire yet on the TTM squeeze indicator, and histogram-wise, obviously getting big continuous bumps on the bullish momentum side of things. We'll see if the volume stretches up, because this was nice volume yesterday with the big buys. So, I would suspect also SoFi is getting the benefit of the macro sensibilities of the overall market for the time being, the indices climbing and things sort of getting into pumpish range. So certainly long distressed, beaten up, flopped around stocks can benefit from that wildly to the upside, just as wildly as they get just completely slaughtered when the market pulls back, 2% and these stocks are down 8, 10, 12, 15%, so it's a similar kind of relativism there. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week has been going well, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.